And then we're going to start on this. Okay, so one of the things, let's actually go to the very beginning. So if you did the worksheet about the exponential functions, you'll know all exponential functions have this form. And it's the one that's on the top here. The one where is y is equal to a times b to the x. All exponential functions will look like that. A is the y-intercept and b is the multiplier. So let's look at this first problem, and it's very similar to questions that you have dealt with in the previous worksheets. So B Hall has a roach infestation. Compare the following classrooms to find out who will have the most roaches after 10 days. So we have 3 different representations. We have a table, we have a graph, and we have an equation. So if you look back at the thing that I circled on the top, we need to find 2 things. That's the y-intercept, and that's the multiplier. Now, if you remember from first semester, y-intercept is always where x is equal to 0. So on our table, right, for the table here, the y-intercept is just 4. Okay. For the graph, remember that the y-intercept is always where we intersect the y-axis. Sorry. So the y-intercept here is going to be, it goes up by 2, so it's in the middle of 2 and 4. So it is going to be 3. Okay. And then in equation form, if you look at the top.
Wait, Mister.
Yeah.
Can you explain that again?
The graph one?
Yeah.
Okay. So the y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. The y-axis is that black line, that vertical black line, right? And then, so the graph is right where you see my cursor here. That's where it's intersecting the y-axis. And so you see how this goes from 0 to 10. So this has to be 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So if it's halfway between 2 and 4, the y-intercept.
3. Okay.
Cool. And then back when we do the equation, remember, when it's written in equation form, that first number is always the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is 2 here. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is the multiplier. And the multiplier you'll always find from the y values. So if you look here at the table, how do I go from 4 to 12, 12 to 36, 36 to 108, and 108 to 324? Well, I would just go in, how do I go from 4 to 12? And that was just, you just multiply by 3. So your multiplier will just be 3. Okay. Now, for the graph is probably the most difficult one to deal with, but you already know the y-intercept is 3. Then what you're going to do is you're going to look at every x value to see what the y values are. So here, the y value here is 6. Then I go to where x is 2. Oops, sorry. And right there, the y value is 12. And then I go to where x is 3. And the y value here is 24. So I go from 3 to 6 to 12 to 24. So you see that I'm multiplying.
Wait, Mister, what number are you on?
The very top, number 1.
Yeah, but are you like are you ready? Because I can't see it on your screen.
You can't?
No.
Um, I don't know why you can't see it. Can everyone else see it?
Yes.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's okay. I'm recording this, so if it is showing on my screen. So when I put the video later, you could see it. Okay. And then here, when you have the equation, the one that's always attached to the x is the multiplier. So the multiplier here is 4. So now we're going to go ahead and answer the questions. Noelia, this meeting shouldn't take too long. We're just going over 2 questions. Now, on the bottom, they're asking write an equation for each classroom. By the way, those of you that use Kami, I think a lot of you haven't noticed here on the left, there's actually something that's called equation that you could click. And when you click that, everything will be written in math form. So let's write the equation for Mrs. Sellers. Now, here's how you write the equation of an exponential. Remember, going back to the top, you're going to use this form, y is equal to a times b to the x, where a is the y-intercept and b is the multiplier. So if Mrs. Sellers, if her y-intercept is 4 and her multiplier is 3, I'm going to write y is equal to 4 times 3 to the x. Someone in my period 1 asked, how do you do that power of x? You could use shift 6. It's the caret button, and it puts everything to the top. Okay. So you see, once again, the y-intercept is first. The multiplier is 3. For Miss Holt, if we write her equation, her y-intercept is 3, but her multiplier is 2. So it's y is equal to 3 times 2 to the x. And for Mrs. Duma, her equation would be, it's already actually written there, but I'll just copy it again. Y is equal to 2 times 4 to the x. So we could easily answer number 2 here. Once again, if you're using Kami, you could just use the text box here. So for number 2, who started with the most roaches? Remember, the starting value is always your y-intercept. So Mrs. Sellers started with 4, Miss Holt started with 3, and Miss Duma started with 2. So the person who started with the most roaches would be Mrs. Sellers. And then who started with the least number of roaches? That would be Mrs. Duma, because she only started with 2. Okay. Now the next question is, whose classroom are the roaches growing the fastest? Well, that's based on your multiplier, right? And so the one with the highest multiplier would be Mrs. Duma. She has a multiplier of 4. And then the classroom whose roaches are growing the slowest is the one with the smallest multiplier, and that's Miss Holt. Okay. So does anyone have any questions on 1 through 5 on how that works? I think seeing this all laid out, it's pretty, it's good. Okay. Now, for number 6, it says find out how many roaches are in each classroom after 10 days. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use the equations that we wrote here and plug it 10 for x. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to use your phone calculator to go ahead and do this. Or you could use the calculator on your computer. Doesn't really matter. But if you're using your iPhone, what you're going to do is you need to put it sideways, and you need to type this. 4, I'll put it on the chat. 4 times 3, and then there's a button that looks like this.
We can turn this in on the Google Doc, right?
Yeah.
Google Doc.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's a button in your iPhone, or it's even in if you have an Android, it's y to the x, or it might be x to the y, depending on what phone you have. But that's the exponent button. And so what I want everyone to try now is to get the answer that I'm going to get here.
Mister, we can do this on the Google Docs
What do you mean? Yes, 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 yes.
and just fill it in.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So give me a second. So it's 4 times 3.
Mister,
Yeah.
on my computer, it wasn't allowing me to do the graph.
Yeah. Even on Cami?
I don't have to.
No, wait. On Cami, you couldn't?
I couldn't do it on Cami either.
Okay. Give me a sec. This assignment doesn't have a graph involved in it, so you don't have to worry about this one. But I'll try to do in future assignments when there is a graph.
Okay, thank you.
So everyone see if you can get 236,196 for Mrs. Sellers. You're plugging in 10 into that equation for Mrs. Sellers' equation. Okay.
So you're plugging in 10 into the x.
Into the x. So you
Why?
yeah. So if you have an iPhone, you're just gonna do
10 days.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so here X represents days and Y represents the number of roaches.
Wait, how do you do it again, mister?
Right here on the chat. So there's a button on your iPhone that's like a Y to the X. That's the exponent button. So press 4 times, like the multiplication button, and do 3. Then press that X to the Y button, or Y to the X, then press 10, and then press equals.
Oh, okay, I got it.
Okay, cool. Okay, so go ahead and try it for Miss Holt and for Miss Duma using those equations and plugging in 10 for X. And then I'm gonna put the answers here and just double check that you get the same number that I did. Okay. So that's what I have. Waldo, what are you confused with?
Right now, we're going into the magical forest.
The calculator. Waldo, if it's a calculator, I'll help you after I'm done with the session.
The magical forest? Yes. Guess what?
Me too, mister. Help.
So I'm just going to move on. If it's just the calculator button presses, I'll help those that are having trouble with later. I just want to get through this session so that the rest of the people can, go on with their job. Okay.
Wait, how long is this session?
We have one more problem. But it took 10 minutes max, so maybe another 10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. So let's go ahead and go to the second question. So now the other teachers made this question. So Mr. Castillo's nephew wants the bounciest ball for his birthday. Okay, whoever did that, can you please? So,
Mister?
Yeah.
We're getting credit for being here, right? Since
Yes.
we're mandatory?
Yes. So get balls from 3 different. Let's go. I muted you. Okay, so we buy a ball from 3 different vending machines, and then we are going to test each one out, compare how each of these are. So let me go back to this. So in the first one, remember the y-intercept is always where x is 0. Okay. So this is going to be 64. Okay. For here, the y-intercept is 27. And then here, the y-intercept is 32. It's always that first number in the equation. Now, here's the thing. Here you can see that it's decay. Remember, decay happens when your multiplier is less than 1. That means the graph is going down. So here's a couple of things we're going to talk about when we talk about decay. The multiplier is going to be kind of different than what you think. So if you see here, you see for the y values in the table, here I am dividing by 4, right? 64 divided by 4 is 16. 16 divided by 4 is 4. And then 4 divided by 4 is 1, right? However, when we do exponential functions, the second number is always called the multiplier. So if you're dividing by 4, it's the same thing as multiplying by 1/4. Okay? So when it's a division problem, yes, Romar, you're right. Your multiplier is 1/4. Okay? Whenever you're dividing, you need that multiplier to be a fraction. Now, let's look at the Seafood City one. So once again, we're going to look at the x values and we're going to look at the y values. So I start at 27. This next y value here is 9. Then when I go to x is 2, right, I get that this is, 3. And then I go to here, and I get that y value is 1. So it goes 27 to 9 to 3 to 1. So I'm dividing by 3, but that means my multiplier is 1/3. Okay? And then here your multiplier is 1/2. So we could take that information and we could write the equations here. So the first one would be y is equal to 64. That's my y-intercept, and then my multiplier is 1/4. And let me move that so you could see it. Okay. So once again, y-intercept goes first, and then the multiplier goes inside. Seafood City's equation would be y is equal to 27, and then I put 1/3 inside, and then this is taken to the x power. And then the Ralph's, it would be y is equal to 32, and then 1 divided by 2 to the x. Okay. And then so those are your 3 equations. So number 2, which ball was bounced from the highest height? So once again, that's your y-intercept because that's where you start with, right? And then so you could answer that. Which ball was bounced from the lowest height? So once again, that's where we start, the lowest y-intercept. Okay, now let's think about number 4. Which ball decreases in height the fastest? So we have to look at our multiplier, and this is 1/4, 1/3, and 1/2. So the one that's going to cut it faster is if we divide it by 4, because if we divide by 4, that's a bigger number, right? And so if we divide it into more pieces, that's the one that's decreasing fastest. Okay. Whereas the one that's decreasing the slowest is Ralph's, because we're only cutting it in half. one way to think about that is if you have $100, and if I'm cutting it into half, you have 50. But if I'm cutting it into 4, I have 25. So you lose money the fastest with the 1/4. With the 1/2, you're not losing it as fast. So once again, number 6 is all about the calculator. So once again, if you are having trouble with the calculator, you could stay after the session and I'll help you with it, but this is what you would type into your calculator, 64 times, and then you would put in parentheses 1 divided by 4. Then you're going to press the y to the x button. Then you're going to press 5 because it's to the 5th after 5 bounces, right? So 5 is replacing x. 5 represents the number of bounces, and you're going to press equals. Okay? And so now see if you can match what I get. So it is going to be 64 times 1 divided by 4 to the 5th power. And I get 0.0625. For Seafood City, I get 0.1111, and it kind of just repeats. And then for Ralph's, it's 32 times a half taken to the 5th power, and this should be 1. So the one with the lowest height, okay? So it goes lowest height, medium height to the highest height. And then we only did 2 problems, Noelia. I think you saw both. So you're good. You're doing 3 and 4 on your own. So the ball that is the bounciest would be the one from Ralph's because it's the highest one after 5 bounces. Besides the calculator presses, does anyone else have any questions? Don't leave the chat because I have to take attendance. Okay, and then I'll dismiss you as I
Mr.
copy.
Castillo,
Yeah.
because I did it on paper, can I just take a picture of and send it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, Blanca.
How do you do it online? Because I don't have the papers, and it won't let me edit the doc online.
Okay, hold on. Let me work with you, Blanca. I might have to email it to you.
Okay.
But if you were working it on paper, like Olivia said, you could take a picture of the paper. And if you want, you could do all these assignments on a separate sheet of paper and take pictures of those and send them as well. I'll take that as well.
Oh, okay.
Original document. Okay.
Okay.
Couple of other things. Since we already had this session and you have the math open, I would recommend you just finish the last 2 problems right now. Jose, no, I am not going to do those. You do them on your own. But I recommend, since you already have this out and the math is already out, it's fresh in your mind, do it now, submit it, and so you don't have to be doing this at 11:50 tonight.
Wait, is it
Some
due
of you
today?
do. Yes. The due date is 11:59 tonight.
And is there still going to be homework on the weekends? Because you had something
No.
due on Sunday.
No. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, listen to Jose.
No, I'm not listening to Jose.
Mister.
Okay.
Please, mister.
Please, mister.
So.
Mister, I got all the free time right now. You're sitting
Exactly.
there.
So you do the work.
Yeah.
You do the work
No,
now.
we need your
Okay.
help.
If you,
Exactly, mister. Come
okay,
on.
hold on. If you need help with the calculator presses, just stay online. Otherwise, when I call your name and I said you're good to go, you could leave the chat because I have you marked for attendance. But if you want to stay, you could stay. Noelia, I got you. Olivia, I got you.
Ah.
Emily Contreras,
Fucking Olivia.
Wait, did you say my name?
Okay, Blanca, I have you.
She
Um,
said,
Genesis, I got you. Jesus, I got you. Jose, I got you. Joseph, I got you.
Joseph.
Mister.
Mariah, I got you. Naya, I got you. Paulina, I got you. Rodney, you're good if you want to go. Romar, you're good. Suseli, you're good.
Is my hair getting curlier, Bubby?
Thomas, you're good. Vilma, you're good. Waldo, you're good.
Does my hair look curlier?
Okay.
But does it look curlier?
Jose. Okay. Yes, Mariah, it is kind of the same, right? It's just you're trying to compare different things. So that means the quiz should be easy, right, Mariah? And she left. So, okay. Jose, you're probably not going to get that video. Olivia, who is that?
It's Lizzie.
My friend Lizzie. She comes in at lunch sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Your mic
Hi,
is
Lizzie.
off. You're like, is my hair curlier?
It is.
Okay. Calculator presses. Waldo, do you still need help on the calculator presses? Yes. Okay. So, Waldo, do you have an iPhone? Or an Android? Bye, Olivia.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye, Mister.
Bye, Noelia. So Waldo, go sideways, right? Do you see? Oh, what's up, Waldo? You can unmute if you want to.
Yeah.
So look on my screen right now, and look here. Do you see the?
Waldo, I love you.
Okay.
Let's see, bro. What happened?
Do you see the button that looks like this, the Y to the X?
The Y to the. Hold on.
If you go sideways, you should see that Y to the X button.
Yeah.
There we go. Rodney, show him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's your exponent button, right? So
Yeah.
right now, why don't you go ahead and try just doing this? Press 2, Y to the X, and then press 3, and see if you get 8 as your answer. Because 2 to the third is 8, right?
I got 1.2.
Wait, what? 2?
I swear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Try that again. 2, press 2, Y to the X, and then 3.
Y to the X and then 3.
And it equals.
I got 1.2.
Huh. What's wrong with your calculator?
Wait, is it the right X? Hold on. Which one is it?
Okay, hold on. Let me closer to the screen.
I'm lost.
Hold on. Hold on, give me a second. Okay, now your screen's big on mine. Back it up a little bit. Back it up. Hold on. This video quality is not good.
Facts.
Which one are you pressing? Can you just show me which one you're pressing?
I'm pressing this one, the Y and the X. Hold on, where is it? This one.
The one with
You
the
can't see
square
it,
root?
though.
No, not the one with the square root.
So which one?
Okay.
What the?
Hold on. Not the square root one, Waldo. That's why
Yeah.
I'm having an issue. Okay. This one right here. Look on my screen right now. Look where I'm kind of like circling around. Oh, there we go. What Rodney has. X to the Y. X to the Y. You find it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Do press 2, then press X to the Y, and then press 3.
Oh, yeah, I got it.
Okay. Now let's go back to number 1
Mm-hmm.
and let's try to get this number of 236, 196. Okay? So
So
go
it's 4
ahead,
times 3 and then to the power of 10.
3, then do that x to the y button, press 10, and then press equals.
Yeah. Yeah, I got it.
Okay, good.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Wait, Mr. Castillo, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, the assignment that we did on
Yo,
the
Rodney, have a good
one thing, I turned it in, but I went back to look at it,
Uh-huh.
and there like the rest, the only one I pretty much did was number 1, but I don't know what happened to the rest of the questions that I did answer.
Do you know which assignment that was? Which one
I
did
think it was the last assignment that you gave us.
Oh, okay. I'll look at that in a bit because I have
Okay.
another session at 2 o'clock with my period 3 class.
Hmm.
But I'll remember that and then I'll count it. Don't worry.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Anyone else have any questions? You're all good. Otherwise, I'm gonna end this chat. Okay, bye, Jose. Okay, thanks. Love you guys too. And yes, Emily, I'll post this to Classroom.
Wait, Mister.
Whoa, whoa.
Oh, never mind. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Later, Rodney.
Bye.